Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, guys. As we continue our conversations this morning, we are chatting with the Tobago Business Chamber, and we are talking with Mr. Attorney Martin George. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Tobago Updates.
Yes, hi, good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, thank you so much this morning for making the time to chat with us. Now, the Tobago Business Chamber has made proposals to the mid-year budgetary review, and we would have touched a bit on it earlier, where you have submitted a recommendation that the Foreign Investment Act be totally repealed because it really prohibits the type of investment that Trinidad and Tobago needs to have that continuous circulation of foreign exchange. Talk to us a bit about that.
Okay, all right. So the Foreign Investment Act is something that was introduced around 2008, 2009. And when the proposals were first floated, the idea behind it was supposedly to prevent Tobagonians from selling their properties to foreigners. But, I actually had a meeting with then Chief Secretary, Mr. Orville London, and I told him, I said, Chief, all this is going to do is switch it from the lands being sold to foreigners, and instead it's going to be just bought up by rich Trinidadians, which is what has essentially happened, right? The amount of properties that have been sold to Trinidadians over the last 10, 15 years, it's phenomenal. So basically, it hasn't stopped people selling their lands or selling their properties, which I think is what they were hoping to achieve. So the act has not achieved its purpose at all if it was to stop Tobagonians from selling out their properties, selling their lands, etc. Instead, what it has done, it has prevented Tobagonians from getting the very lucrative prices that they used to get when they were able to sell to foreigners. Because the point is, before the Foreign Investment Act, people were able to sell their properties to foreigners directly, and you would get, large sums of money in foreign currency. So therefore, you would get that foreign exchange flowing into the country. So since it has not stopped people selling their properties or selling their lands, then all you are really doing is preventing foreign exchange from coming in. And the nation is in a severe forex crisis. So therefore, in those circumstances, we are saying that it makes absolutely no sense to keep this archaic and anachronistic piece of legislation on the books. To satisfy whom? What purpose are you achieving by keeping it on the books when the nation is suffering for foreign exchange? The people can therefore be able to sell their lands if this legislation is removed.
Okay, and how does it really work, the current legislation, when persons are selling their lands and asking for US dollars when they're selling? Because you have a number of properties on the market and persons are putting their price out there in US dollars.
No, well, there's nothing wrong with you putting your price in US dollars, because remember, even locals who might have access to foreign exchange could purchase, or you might have a local living abroad who works for foreign currency who could purchase it for that. That's not the issue. The issue is that the legislation prevents someone who is not a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago from being able to just directly purchase property. And I don't know why the legislation is there. It makes absolutely no sense. So therefore, someone who is not a citizen, who is interested, somebody maybe from Sweden, Germany, Italy, Belgium, wherever, and they want to purchase property in Tobago, they now have to be subject to this legislation. And let me tell you, it is the most cumbersome and obsolete piece of legislation you could think of. So therefore, those are the reasons why we have said it makes no sense. I think in the years since it's been implemented, you have no more than maybe 10 licenses ever granted. And it's a nightmare to try to navigate the hurdles. So while other Caribbean islands are rolling out the red carpet for investors, welcoming them, facilitating things, making it easy, we still have this stupid legislative obstacle that serves no purpose, and it does not benefit Tobagonians. Tobagonians would benefit much more if this legislation were repealed and we were able to sell our properties directly to foreigners from all over the world, from Switzerland, from wherever they want to invest.
And as a part of your recommendations for the mid-year budget review, you have also made proposals in regards to crime and security by asking the government to invest a substantial amount of money in the ports as an entry for criminality between the islands. You've asked for vehicle scanners, guard dogs to be at the ports. Tell us a bit more about some of the recommendations that you're making, and what is your confidence level in the actual investment in these things?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we're asking that the government take these things seriously and deal with them, because at the end of the day, let's be real, the root cause of a lot of the upsurge that we've seen in crime in Tobago is for two reasons: guns or drugs. All right, illegal guns, illegal drugs. That's what it is. Let's not window dress it or pretend about it. Okay, so therefore, if it is that it's illegal guns or illegal drugs, then you have to now get to the source of it, because neither of those are manufactured in Tobago per se. All right, so therefore we have to now see, okay, is it coming through the legal ports of entry? Is it being, brought in by persons coming at illegal ports of entry or non-regulated ports of entry? Okay, so let's deal with the legal ports of entry first. All right, the airport is not a major source of these things, because the airport, they have their security systems very tight, but the port is something where, imagine you are walking through a scanner, so a walk-on passenger, right? A single person walking on with a backpack or a knapsack or whatever. You have to pass through a scanner, but yet still you could drive on a van load of guns and there's no scanner for your vehicle. Does that make any sense whatsoever? You're scanning the individual who is walking on, but somebody could drive on with a truckload of guns and you have no scanner. All you have is a port police might, take a cursory look or a glance and, say, open your trunk or open the back. They peep around, right? In less than a minute, they tell you, all right, okay, you go ahead. Come on, seriously? That is not the way you do things now in this modern day of 2024. If you really want to stop these things, you definitely need to have the vehicle scanners. And I don't know why that has not been implemented yet. So therefore, we have to get to the source of it and ensure that we stop that inflow of illegal guns and illegal drugs into Tobago. That will help immediately to reduce crime and criminality on the island.
You have also recommended the Tobago Regional Police Service. Tell us a bit about that one as well.
Right. Okay. So you saw the chief secretary. You spoke about the assembly having its own police force. Now, the only way that can happen is along the lines of like what happens with the regional corporations in Trinidad, where you have the municipal police. So therefore, what I have suggested is, and I've actually given a name that can be used, the Tobago Regional Police Service. TRPS. But what needs to be done is you need to have legislation so that this can be enacted. So the same way the municipal police are enacted by legislation, the government would need to enact specific legislation to create the TRPS, the Tobago Regional Police Service, and then once they are legislatively incorporated, they will then be precepted and they can then now work alongside the TPS and ensure that we have a strengthening of the law enforcement arm of the agencies for both, of them working together for the benefit of Tobago.
Excellent. And we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back and continuing our discussions right after this. See you soon. Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. We have been chatting with Attorney Martin George, and we've been talking about some of the recommendations that the Tobago Business Chamber has been making to the mid-year budget review. Welcome back, Mr. Martin. Good morning. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm great. I'm great.
All right, well, good to have you back. You made, well, the chamber made a recommendation that has been in this space for a while in regards to CPEP and URP and revamping and restructuring that whole program in order to offer full-time employment for the entire day and to expand their skills and their offering, not just the infrastructure but also in agriculture. Talk to us a bit about this recommendation and what is your confidence level in the acceptance of these recommendations from the public perspective?
Okay, well, from the public perspective, I think that if the public recognizes the underlying, idea behind it, they would definitely be on board with it. I'll tell you why. Currently, the way most of the CPEP and URP workers are structured, they are daily paid itinerant workers. So, in other words, a lot of them are not able to access, say, for instance, bank loans or mortgages or other facilities because the financial institutions see them as, you're just temporary and you're just a part-time worker, and therefore I can't give you a long-term loan based on a part-time status. So once they are now full-time workers permanently employed, that is going to elevate their status, so they will now be able to have a payslip that they could take to the bank and say, hey, listen, yes, this is my payslip. I'm a monthly paid worker. I am a full time, and this is my salary. I've been employed for so much time, etc. And therefore, they will now be able to access financing for projects that they want to undertake, whether it's a car loan, upgrading, improving your house, or purchasing land, or whatever, anything of the sort. So they will be able to they will be able to do these things and access these facilities if it is that they are able to be permanent workers. So that's one benefit for the public. Secondly, the increased salaries from being a whole day worker, right? So therefore, your salary will increase. Therefore, this will now be your permanent job. Three, the benefit to Tobago particularly would be, as I'm suggesting, we focus on having these workers in the agriculture sector. But of course, this has to be led by the administration, by the government. So, in other words, you have, like, for instance, if you start setting up major agricultural facilities or farms or whatever, then you use the resource of these workers as your staffing for the farms. Because really and truly, right now, nobody is, in agriculture in a big way in Tobago. Let's face it. If the boat doesn't come up with goods and provisions from Trinidad, or the boats from up the islands in Vincent, Grenada, etc., if they don't come to Tobago with their produce, we really have little or nothing. Right? So therefore, we need to look at revamping our entire agriculture sector. Remember, years and years ago, Tobago used to be the breadbasket. We had a thriving agricultural industry where we actually used to supply Trinidad and supply up the islands. That has changed. So the question is, why can't we get back to that? And I am saying that, look, if we restructure our CPEP and URP programs, we therefore can have workers who can therefore now contribute to that developmental thrust.
Okay, and for a long time, Tobagonians have been complaining about the inter-island transportation system. We were promised by the Minister of Transportation that we would see a new cargo vessel for Tobago, yet we have not heard about it or seen it as yet. What can Tobagonians do, and what can be done from the THA's level to continue to advocate, just as the Tobago Business Chamber is doing for Caribbean Airlines to improve its services between the two islands?
Well, it's interesting because what I have noticed is that Caribbean Airlines has been publishing over the last few months, they've been publishing statistics. And what they are trying to show is that, look, regardless of what is said by the public, they are saying that they have actually provided excess capacity on the peak periods. So they have published statistics to show that they are saying, look, if it is that you are saying that you didn't get seats, they are saying that no, that's not true, because they have flown their aircraft with lots of empty seats. But again, I put the responsibility back on Caribbean Airlines because I'll tell you, and I mean, any member of the traveling public can, confirm this situation. What seems to happen is that there's some flaw or irregularity in Caribbean Airlines' own booking system. So, in other words, you might want to travel. You check online, you try to make a booking, it's telling you no seats available. But yet still, you go to the airport and you realize the same flight that told you no seats available is leaving half empty and going. What sense does that make? So, in other words, Caribbean Airlines needs to update its system for some kind of real time analysis. So, in other words, if it is that they recognize that, well, okay, look, maybe, we might be flying half empty, then what they need to do is maybe do either phone calls or text messages or email confirmation with persons, okay, look, your flight is 8:20 tomorrow morning, you are confirmed on it. Can you let us know, are you going to be there on time, or shall we, reassign your flight to a different day, a different time, because sometimes things may come up and somebody may not be able to make their flight. And, the point is there's no proper notification system. Caribbean Airlines has tried to implement this $50 penalty as a way of dealing with it. But the thing is, the $50 penalty has been very arbitrarily and capriciously applied, okay? Because you look at it and the reality is, you look at all the THA officials, when they miss a flight or they're late for a flight or whatever, nobody charges them the $50. Government officials traveling between the islands from central government, nobody charges them the $50. They walk on and they just change their flight at whim. It's really just the small man who ends up, paying the penalty. So Caribbean Airlines needs to look at that and change the way they do their online booking system so that they can get real-time updates. So therefore, if it is that someone has changed their mind or would not be traveling, then that seat can now become available for somebody who actually wants to travel. Because it's pointless that you are showing me statistics to show that you are flying with empty seats, because that is ineffective for you, the airline, if you understand me. So it
Right.
doesn't make sense that you traveling with half your plane empty. So they need to look at that. So I understand the point they are making, right? So we need to be fair to Caribbean Airlines also, I mean, I understand the point they're making, and they're saying, look, hey, we are providing the seats, but the problem is with their online booking system, which keeps showing unavailability, yet when you go to the airport, the plane is half full.
Right. And we're asking, the conversation continues to happen, asking them to expand the time between Trinidad and Tobago for the last
Oh
flight.
yes, that's
What can be
they have
done
no
at this
excuse for that.
point?
They have no excuse for that. They have absolutely no excuse for that, because at one point they had said money was the issue, but you can't tell me money is the issue, but yet still we're seeing Caribbean Airlines expanding their routes to different islands, going up, to Cuba, to, Puerto Rico, all kinds of things. So if you have money to do those things, then don't tell me any rubbish about you don't have money to fly later times to Tobago, because it is highly inconvenient to anybody who has to come down to Trinidad to do business. Because if it is you have to come down to Trinidad to do business, and you, for instance, you are trying to leave Port of Spain by 5 o'clock or 5:30 to face that traffic to go up the road, you're most likely not going to reach in time to be able to check in for that last flight, which is, I think, 8:20 or sometime after 8 p.m. So therefore, it's really, really crippling for people, because you have lots of people who they just miss the cutoff time, and then you are there now, you're at Piarco Airport, you're stranded. What do? Do you try now to fight traffic to go back down Port of Spain side to get somewhere to stay for the night, or do you end up sleeping in the airport? So it's really, really not efficient or convenient at all, because the time that you have to travel to try to get up there is really during peak time when the traffic is at its worst. So they definitely need to fly later. There's no excuse for them not doing so.
Okay, and the chief secretary is scheduled to give his budget presentation on the 1st of July. Are you making some of these pleas to him to include some of these recommendations into his presentation? And what are your final comments for the central government as they make their allocation towards Tobago?
Definitely, we would be reaching out to the chief secretary, because at the end of the day, we as a business organization, a business chamber, we are seeking the best, interests of Tobago and Tobago's development. So we are willing to work with whichever administration is in power, whichever administration is in charge. We are willing to work with them. So we are definitely willing to work with the chief secretary if it is that he is willing to take the ideas on board and make it part of his presentation. All right. I must, however, thank you all for the time, but I regrettably have another appointment that I have to head to now. But it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and it's always nice being part of the Tobago Updates family.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Manton George. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, that is the end of this morning's conversations. We want to thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting, and doing all that you can do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster on the island of Tobago. Again, we want to say thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow, guys. Have a great day.
I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.